Good day, this is William Garvey, Editor-in-Chief of Business and Commercial Aviation magazine. Today we're speaking with Dean Rush, a man with a most unusual resume. He was a forward air controller in the Vietnam War and highly decorated for his combat service. Then he worked in a variety of business aviation roles, ultimately rising to CEO of AMR Combs and later Fairchild Dornier. Following that, he went into the seminary and became a minister. Quite a journey. Dean, you received many decorations for your combat flying in Vietnam, but you also received something else much less welcome. Can you talk about it and the outcome?
Yes, I was exposed to Agent Orange, and the Agent Orange was a compound that was sent to defoliate the trees when or if we were ever shot down or we were on the ground and needed more firing area. And it worked very well. However, the problem that I had was they didn't realize until later it was a carcinogen. About 8 years after I returned home, started losing weight, just pretty lethargic, and I had a charter pilot not show up one day, and I was going to have to fly, and I went to my local doctor and said, "Bart, you have to fix me." And he said, "What do you mean fix me?" And I said, "Well, I'm losing weight and I'm having these problems." And he said, "Well, what kind of diet are you on?" I told him no diet. He ran a test and sent me to a doctor. The next day I found out I had adenocarcinoma in stage 4, which of course was very serious. And so I went through a series of surgeries there. A few months later I had a testicular cancer show up and went through a surgery there, and then in about 2005, it reoccurred again, this time with thyroid. So there have been a series of cancers, and I've learned that you can persevere through those things, and I know some other folks have not been as fortunate as I have been in early detection, and I think that's been the secret.
Are you cancer-free now?
I believe I'm cancer-free right now, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, of course. In the course of your terrific business career, you had a bad go after partnering with an unscrupulous fellow who caused you lots of grief. I know it's a complicated episode, but can you summarize it, and ultimately what was the outcome?
I had partnered with a gentleman during the time with cancer. At the time, I thought it was very gracious of him. He brought some loan papers for some airplanes that we were borrowing money to purchase, and I went into the hospital shortly after that and went through this series of surgeries. While I was there, he brought these loan papers in to sign. I signed them. When I got out of the hospital a few months later, one of my sales guys came and picked me up, took me to the airport. When I arrived, found out that 3 of the airplanes were not there that were in trust by the bank. It became obvious they weren't there. I was told, well, don't worry about those airplanes, because I had a Keyman life insurance policy on me when we went into the partnership, and that would take care of paying after I died. And of course, I was in stage 4, so everybody anticipated that's what was going to be the outcome. But after I died, the airplane debt would be paid off, and then there'd be ample money for everyone else.
What a supportive group.
Yeah. It was a hard learning experience when I went to that partner and said, "We've got to pay this back. These airplanes are out of trust." And we had the capability of doing that. He said, no, don't do that because you'll go to jail. And he further explained that I had signed the papers when I was in the hospital. And so I thought about it and decided I just didn't want the banker thinking that I had a part in anything. So I had a friend load me in his pickup truck. I couldn't drive. Took me to San Antonio. I was sitting in the banker's office explaining what had happened, and the phone rang, and it was my partner telling me that I was fired because he had, with another guy, the majority of the stock. And he fired me from my own company, and I learned very quickly a lot about business. But once I was fired, of course, I didn't have insurance, and with cancer, it was a tough thing. But as I began to recover, a friend of mine who had worked with me and for me about 10 years before, by the name of Dale Niederhauser, called me and said, "Would you like to come to Grand Rapids? I work for American's General Aviation affiliate. We need a person here that knows about charter and aircraft." And so I was employed suddenly at a very low price or low wage, but with good fortune and great the country for that company, and then later as president of two of their divisions.
Moving on from your aviation career, when that finally capped some years ago, you chose an entirely different course. Can you say what that is and what your goal is?
It's very relative to the story I just told you, because through that I began to understand that we need desperately in the country, and I think in aviation, because it's such a prominent vocation, and I've met some fantastic people there, we need some principles that allow us to work in truth. And those are tough sometimes. When you're selling, there's always something where somebody can think, well, I don't tell them this, or I shouldn't tell them that. And bottom line is truth makes a difference. And so my whole goal in going into the ministry, which I went in following my retirement from AMR, is to get biblical principles into the workplace. And they're very straightforward. They talk about truth and evaluation and equally yoked addendums so that people will learn to trust one another and have good reason and accountability for doing that. And they're simple principles, but principles that can go past just well beyond religious principles, and they're set in concrete. So it's something that we as Americans can learn, and I think we've kind of gotten away from that because of technology and the fact you don't have to look someone in the face. It's made a big difference, and we can make that change. And so that's my intent, is just to be a small part of that and get people involved in setting their companies up that way, and industry can make a huge difference. And I think with the quality of people involved in aviation, it's a great place to start.
We've been speaking with Dean Rush, a pilot, president, and pastor. This is William Garvey, editor of Business and Commercial Aviation magazine. Thanks for listening.